Hello, good morning, aunties, uncles. How are you? It's
Good
nice to
morning.
see everyone back. Hello, everybody. So
Morning, Doc.
there's some changes. I now have a mustache and I have a little bit of a beard. Pandemic boredom. Yeah, I'm trying something new. How are you, po? It's so nice to see all of your smiling faces. So today our topic is how to be healthy with or without COVID. One thing po that we have to accept now is uh, COVID will be here. It's not gonna go away in 2020. It's not gonna go in 2023. It will always just be there. But life is going to go back to normal. But for many of you, your family loves you so much that they want to limit you going out. So um, we have to find some way to be happy at home, right? For you, if you feel confident enough to go out, it's good. Like maybe walk outside lang in the garden, because we have to make sure you stay healthy. But so we're gonna discuss a few things. If your family lets you out, and the other thing is if your family doesn't let you out. Okay. So this is a time now that we need to be healthier than ever. And how are we gonna become healthier than ever? First, you have to know your starting point. Where are you right now on your health journey? Or maybe you haven't started it. So first thing you need to do is the beginning of every health journey starts with where are you now? How do we measure what your health is? Okay. So first, easiest way is what is your weight? For the ladies, we won't ask what your weight is. Only for the men. Okay. So you have to understand, you don't have to tell anyone. You can just keep it to yourself. What is your weight? And are you can Google, because it will be hard for me to tell you the ideal weight of each and every person, but you have to know what is your ideal weight. Okay. So if you're higher than your ideal weight for your age, this is relative to your gender and your age. Okay. So not everyone is gonna have the uh same ideal weight, because that's height, age, and gender. You have to know those. So I can't be the one to tell you that, but maybe later on we can talk to Sister Juliet to help everybody get their ideal weight. It's very important that we're in our ideal weight. That's one. And then number two, we also want to know your blood test. When was the last time you've had a blood test? Okay. We need to know if maybe your SGPT, SGOT, your liver enzymes are okay. More importantly, we need to know what your sugar is. Because now in medicine, we're discovering more, like, especially even with COVID, the ones that uh, would have the most side effects to the vaccine, most side effects or bad symptoms if they catch COVID, are people with very high or elevated blood sugar. Okay, so please, you know, you have to know what your starting point is. You can't improve what you can't measure, right? Kailangan malaman natin what is our starting point. So remember again, weight, and you have to have your blood test. Please check your blood test and please include something called HbA1c. HbA1c. So you can request this from your doctor or you can request this from your HMO. I think at some point I can just send a generic blood test request, and then you just fill in your name so you can all get the test. And then now you don't even have to go out anymore to get your blood test. Okay. Even for my dad is already he's 76 now. I routinely have him check. It's very important to get your HbA1c. What is HbA1c? That is the measure of how much sugar you've had throughout 1 month. The reason why I don't like the fasting blood sugar, because in a standard blood test, there will always be something called FBS. That's the fasting blood sugar. Now, the problem with the fasting blood sugar is that it will tell you the sugar at the time. The HbA1c will tell you the trend of your blood sugar throughout the whole month. So hindi pwedeng dayain yung HbA1c. Because if you do a fasting blood sugar, sometimes if you didn't eat the night before, you're going to have better results than is your accurate results. We need to know what is your real starting point, right? Where are you really? So check that. Don't forget to include HbA1c, because diabetes now is the biggest killer. And then the other thing is, please check your cholesterol, specifically your LDLs, right? And you know, you don't need to have a doctor all the time making you have these requests. This is a standard blood test that will tell you if your cholesterol is high, if your sugar is high. Okay, what are the risks if your sugar is high? If you have diabetes, it's not just one disease. That's actually 4 diseases. Okay, that could involve your kidney, that could involve your liver. So it's very, very important you understand what your HbA1c is. If it's elevated, then we work on bringing your sugar down. And then your cholesterol is also a good indicator, because if your cholesterol is high, if your bad cholesterol is high, it could mean that there is plaque building up in the walls of your arteries. So please also check your cholesterol. Okay. So there are tests that you can do at home alone, and then there are tests that you're going to need to request for a blood extraction. Blood extraction now can be done in your house. Okay. Now, what else can you measure at home? You can also measure your resting heart rate. Okay, because we need to know where your heart is at. You have to take control and have command of your health, because no one is responsible for that. It's not your kids. It's not your spouse. It's also not your doctor. The primary responsibility, the ownership of your health is you. So you have to be the one to get these things. All right. Now, the things that it will take time for you to get your blood test, because you have to schedule it and everything like that. But what you can test at home is your ideal weight. You can check you can test your heart rate, and you can also test your blood pressure. Okay. These days, for some reason, we're only really paying attention to the blood pressure. But there's so much more that you can check. You need to understand your heart rate. And we're going to talk about the heart rate now. I'm going to get the device that I think everyone has. One moment. This one, I don't know if you can see it, but this is your blood oxygen meter. Okay, you put it on your finger, and then you measure like that. So it's measuring me now. Let's give it a minute. Okay, my blood oxygen is 98 and my heart rate is 75. Oh, okay, so my blood oxygen is 99. That's good. I think when we talked about this is a very cheap device that you can have. And then in the past talks, we suggested that everyone have this. So you can measure your heart rate, okay? And also you can measure your blood oxygen. If it starts to drop below 95, then there's something wrong. Okay, then, or if you start to hit 92 on your blood oxygen, it could mean that there might be something wrong with the lungs. So right now, ang panglaban din natin with COVID is understanding your own body's health. Right now, I'd like you all to be your own doctor, because nobody feels your body better than you do. Okay, so you have to have these things. And I think, Sister Juliet, correct me if I'm wrong, this device We talked about it in the previous talks. It's very inexpensive, maybe 400 pesos. You can buy this in Lazada or Shopee. With this, you can find out your blood oxygen and your heart rate. But for the purposes of this talk, we're going to talk more about the heart rate because we really discussed the blood oxygen more before. Okay, so we'll talk about the heart rate. What is heart rate? Heart rate is the amount of beats your body will your heart will pump every minute. So what is the normal resting heart rate? Is anywhere from 60 to 100. That means your heart rate is this is your heart pumping when you're just sitting down, not doing any strenuous activity. Now, what we want is it to be low as possible. That means hindi nahihirapan yung heart. Okay, it's pumping at a regular pace. The difference between heart rate and blood pressure, if this, okay, let's say this, the frequency of my clapping, this can be the heart rate. How many beats per minute? Blood pressure is how hard does it pump every minute? Iba yung blood pressure sa heart rate. What we want is low on both. Okay? So with the blood pressure, you know, maybe you have someone at home that can check your blood pressure. You have the Omron or your own digital blood pressure monitor, but please make sure it's calibrated. If you notice, in the hospital, we don't really use digital. We use the manual because it's still the best. So if you have a digital, please make sure it's calibrated correctly. And how do you calibrate? Just make sure you get checked with a manual blood pressure monitor every now and then, maybe every month. Just measure your manual blood pressure, not the digital. You can use the digital for checking daily, okay, if you have hypertension. Now, so we know now the difference between heart rate and blood pressure. And we know that the ideal blood pressure is 100 over 60 until about 120 over 80. That is the normal range. For the heart rate, our normal is 60 to 100. Now, let's talk about someone that's super duper healthy. Just at 9 o'clock, I had a patient, and this patient was an athlete, 25 years old. What was the heart rate? The resting heart rate was 55. So that's good. The lower, the better. That means his heart is not working hard. His blood pressure was 100 over 60. That's ideal. That's an athlete in his 20s. Okay? Now, if you check your heart rate and you're resting, right now I'm not resting. So let's measure my heart rate. And I'm a little bit excited because of this talk. And I'm always nervous when I'm talking to all of you because I want to make sure I do a good job. Okay, my heart rate is 73 and my blood oxygen is 99. So my oxygen is very good, but my heart rate is a little bit elevated because I'm not at rest. But earlier today, for the purpose of this talk, I measured my heart rate and it's at 65. So I'm within normal. For my age, that's okay. Now, everyone will have a different normal resting heart rate depending on how old you are. So from what I can see in the videos, it looks like we're all in our 40s and 50s. Yeah, maybe some 50-year-olds.
Wow, thank you for that.
Yeah. Okay. So, you know, you have to check your range. What is your normal heart rate? Later on, I will furnish Sister Juliet with the chart so you know where you're at. Okay. But right now, I want to talk about why it's important first. It's easy to find out what your normal heart rate and your normal blood pressure is, which is all relative to your age. The reason why we need to know what our resting heart rate is so we can know what is the state of our blood, of our circulatory system. How at risk are we of heart attack? How at risk are we for aneurysm, stroke? The things that we've talked about will tell you all of these things. You don't need a doctor, you don't need a blood test, just a weighing scale, oxygen monitor, this one, this little device here. So at least you know. And also, what's important is when we know that one of the pillars of health is being able to exercise. But I'm also here to tell you that there is an unhealthy level of exercise. You know, there are ultra marathon runners and there are super sprinters that can run 100 kilometers in a day. These people can run marathons. How long is a marathon? That's 42.2 kilometers. And they can do that in 4 hours. You know what they found out? They measured these people. They did a Doppler and a 2D echo. These people that overexercise have the same heart attack risk, as those that are morbidly obese. Okay, because there's a U-shaped curve. If you don't exercise enough, you risk cardiovascular disease. If you exercise too much, you can also get cardiovascular disease. So you want to be in the bottom. Okay, you've all heard about these marathon runners, races. Maybe one of your kids was super into running. There is a point where you stop helping your heart and your blood vessels, and you are putting yourself at more risk. They found out that a lot of runners, they have plaque. Parang naninigas yung blood vessels because of too much exercise. So now we know this. If you want to live longer, stronger, and healthier, you have to exercise to just within 70% of your maximum heart rate. If you do this just 2 times a week, you will make sure that there is no plaque developing in your blood vessels. You will make sure that there is much lower chance of cardiovascular diseases. So and if you're monitoring it, when the slightest change, you can make corrections. In medicine, early detection always leads to a better prognosis. So the sooner we understand the problem before it becomes a problem, we can fix it earlier. So that's why I want you to know your normal weight, your normal heart rate, your normal blood pressure, okay? If and your normal oxygen. And if you know those things, you'll also know how hard you can exercise. The thing is, what discourages a lot of people from exercising is that people think exercising is super pawis, right? Super hingal, super pagod. It doesn't have to be like that. In fact, now we know that if you exercise too much, you will kill yourself faster. Okay? Now we know this. 30 minutes at 70% of your maximum heart rate, 2 times a week, or a maximum of 2.5 hours per week at 70% heart rate is the perfect amount of exercise per week. So if you divide that into three, or maybe you're just 30 minutes on Monday, 30 minutes on Wednesday, and then 30 minutes on Friday, that alone, if you can maintain it for 30 minutes, that you are at 70% of your maximum heart rate, you can make sure that your heart is healthy and all of the pipes, your blood vessels, your arteries, and your veins are also healthy. So that's it. We know that you don't have to be super gym. You don't have to be super brisk walking, right? It's just 70%. The reason why it's bad, now we know that the people that push themselves to 90, 98, 99% of the maximum heart rate, if you do that for a long period of time, what happens is, because the blood vessels doesn't want we don't want to pop, kumakapal, right? The arteries and the veins become thicker, and that makes you more at risk. If a person is super fat, okay, if it's overweight and there's a lot of cholesterol, all of those plaque, it develops on the walls, and it again makes you at risk of cardiovascular injury. Okay, so different different ways of doing it, but both of them means a hardening, that you lose the elasticity to dilate and contract of the blood vessels. So please keep your heart rate exercises below seven at 70% of your maximum heart rate. Later on, I'll also be furnishing Sister Juliet with a formula on how to compute what is your maximum heart rate. Now, other than this device, what else can you do so you can measure your efficient exercise range? It's also the Apple Watch. Okay? I'm not saying go out and buy an Apple Watch. There are much cheaper, nicer, more available alternatives to an Apple Watch. So, see, I can do this, and then I can press the heart rate monitor. So, even while I'm exercising, I can know what my heart rate is. And I know if I exceed 70%, I can pull back. So my heart rate is at 73 because I'm a little bit excited because I'm talking to you. But I'm within normal. Okay? So if you want to be able to live longer, because now we know that we can live up to about 100, 110. In medicine, we expect people to live that long now, 100. So you're all still very young. Okay? Dapat wala pa kayong midlife. We're all still very, very young. So we have to keep exercising so we can enjoy that. You know, one thing when I lost my mom, I learned that we can't choose when it's our time to go. We can pray for a good life. We can pray to the Lord to stay strong and not to be liabilities. Hindi mahirapan our family. But that's not our choice. We can't control that. It's the Lord's choice when He takes us. But we can do something about the time that we have to make sure na hindi tayong pabigat to our families, hindi tayo pabigat to our spouses, by making sure we're healthy. We should be able to still help. Okay? Your lives are far from over. There's so many things. Your kids still need you, your grandkids need you. And it's for that reason you have to stay strong. That's why you have to take ownership and command of your health. That's why we're sharing these with you. All right? So those are some of the things that we do. We have to measure. Again, your weight, your blood, you take your blood test when you can, and then your resting heart rate. You have to know your resting heart rate so you can compute for your maximum heart rate. We'll be showing you how to compute those. And then blood pressure. Okay? If you know that, then it'll be easier to do the four things that you need to live a long and happy life with or without COVID. Okay? So, what are the four things that we need to live a happy, normal life? It's just four. Number one, it's nutrition. Number two, exercise. Number three, sleep. Number four is your mental health. And then we're going to discuss each. Now, let's talk about number one, which is nutrition. All right? Nutrition, we're all normal. We're not eating naman steak every day. So that's okay. It's good. One thing that I wanted you all to add is adding food that has good, healthy bacteria. We need that right now in medicine. We are learning more and more, and we learned that there are several things that affects our mood and our health. And one of the things that we did not expect is the kind of healthy bacteria in your intestines dictate how healthy your blood is. We call that the gut microbiome. Okay? So microbiome, these are the other organisms, the bacteria, the good bacteria that live in us that help us break down food. Okay? So you've all heard of Yakult, correct? And Yakult talks about healthy lactobacilli. But there is not just one population. Okay, there has to be several populations. A healthy athlete in their 20s has well over 1,000 different kinds of bacteria populations living inside them. Some of these bacteria help break down carbohydrates. So what they do is it's not just our acids that help us break down the food, it's also the enzymes and it's also the bacteria. How do we make sure we get all of that healthy bacteria that helps regulate our blood pressure, that helps us digest the food? Do we get so we get maximum nutrition? Because sometimes you can eat the right food but still be malnourished. Can you imagine that? How is that happening? You're eating the right portions and then the right food, but you're still not absorbing it. You're still hungry. Why do you still feel hungry? Because you didn't absorb it. But the Lord made it so that we are all a community, right? Not just in our church mates, our family and friends. It's even inside us, we are still a community. Do you know that every time you take a course of antibiotics, you are killing all of the healthy bacteria in your gut? That's why women that have been taking antibiotics for a long time, the common complication is UTI. Okay? That's why it's so common to get UTI. Like, why is there UTI? There's always you're cleaning naman after urination religiously. You're using the right pH for your feminine wash. Why is there still UTI? Because there's not enough healthy bacteria. If you kill all of the healthy bacteria, the fungus, the yeast infection, fungus is different from bacteria. So when you get out all of the bacteria, all of the food available now gets eaten by the fungus, and then you get a yeast infection. That's why UTI is so common after taking antibiotics. Okay? So we have to be careful with taking antibiotics because it kills off all of our healthy bacteria. It's not just in our gut. For the women, it's also in your urinary tract. Okay, you need healthy bacteria there also. If not, without the healthy bacteria that will compete with the yeast population will overmultiply and you get a yeast infection, a UTI. Okay, so it's very important to always maintain the healthy bacteria. Now we know that now we know why it's important because it helps us digest. It also keeps the bad bacteria populations away. Okay, now we know that good bacteria is our friend. How do we get it? Okay, let's say you've recently been on a course of antibiotics that killed off most of the bacteria. How do we get that bacteria? You get it from varying vegetables. Okay, they say a healthy diet is in 1 week, you would have consumed 30 different types of vegetables. Okay, this is where you need vegetables because when you eat vegetables, there's a lot of built inside the vegetables bacteria. Okay, this is not something that it doesn't mean that you didn't clean the vegetables properly. It's not about that. You can fully disinfect the vegetables, but inside the xylem and the phloem of these vegetables, there is healthy bacteria, and we need those. It helps our gut. That's one. Number one is have varying types of bacteria. Number two, do not overcook your vegetables. If you overcook your vegetables, you kill all of the healthy bacteria. When you're cooking, when you eat the vegetables, it still has to have crunch, right? It still has to feel like a plant. If it's already like if it's a soggy juice like thing, then you know that there's not much healthy bacteria there anymore. There has to be crunchiness still to the vegetables, so you make sure you benefit from it. Okay, so number one, don't overcook your vegetables. Number two, have plenty variety of vegetables throughout the week. And then number three, take fermented vegetables. What are fermented vegetables? Achara, sauerkraut, kimchi. Okay. Have you noticed all of my fellow K-drama and K-pop fans? If I don't know if you like K-dramas and things like that, or Taiwan dramas, those are also very nice. If you notice the Koreans, parang walang mataba, right? There's not too many fat ones because they incorporate kimchi with every meal. They have variety. Okay. Western people that don't know how to eat, usually it's just one slab of steak and then that's it. Right? If you see Asian dishes, there's always a lot of small dishes. The more variety in your food, the better you have as a chance to get a healthy multiple population of bacteria. You need that bacteria. In kimchi alone, there is close to 900 types of bacteria that can help you. If you want to lose weight faster, eat more kimchi, right? About 20 grams per meal would be a good amount so that it will add a lot of bacteria that breaks down carbohydrates. And then what it spits out is easier for us to absorb as energy. If you want less fat, please take more kimchi. If you don't like kimchi, maybe you like achara. It's not as spicy. But please consume fermented vegetables because that will add years to your life. And if you are healthy, you will add life to your years. Okay? All right. So those are the tips. I'm not gonna discuss about too much on other healthy nutrition habits. I just wanted to add these things like fermented vegetables and varying the vegetables so you can have healthy gut bacteria. Okay. And you can also take yogurt because yogurt also has a lot of healthy bacteria. Okay. So you have to eat outside of your comfort zone. You can't just eat the same stuff all the time. When you eat new things, your body gets new bacteria that can help you. Okay. Um, so that's what we call nutrition, which is eating for a healthy microbiome. All right. Next, exercise. We've discussed this. So we said that the four tenets for healthy nutrition for a healthy life is nutrition, exercise, sleep, and mental health. Okay, we've talked about the big one, which is nutrition. Now we'll talk about exercise. Okay. Exercise doesn't have to be difficult. Exercise doesn't have to take up so much of your day. All it needs to have is consistency and moderation. You know, the only difference between a cure and poison is dosage. Too little or too much, it's bad. The father of modern medicine, Hippocrates. That's why we have all doctors have something called the Hippocratic Oath. The oath, Hippocrates said that the key to health is moderation. Even something as good as orange, which has vitamin C, you can also have hypervitaminosis if you take too much. Okay, too little vitamin C and you get scurvy. Right? It's all about the dosage. And exercise, it's also about the dosage. If you exercise too many times, if you exercise every day, then what happens is naninigas yung blood vessels. and you become more at risk for cardiovascular injury like stroke, heart attack, things like that. Okay, so you have to keep the exercise in moderation. It's good to spike your heart rate to about 80%, but only about once, twice, or at most 3 times a week. You need to have time for that little tears in the muscle and the little tears in the collagen fibers in your blood vessels. You need to give time for it to rest and to recover. Okay? Very important. The recovery period is just as important as the exercise period. So that's also why you don't want to exercise too much. What is exercising too much? Every day exercising for 1 hour. That's very bad. And in that time, you make your heart rate go up to about 90%. If you do that, you're using up your life energy. Okay? That's what we learn in Chinese. My guama and my guakong would always tell me that I'm being ridiculous when I go to the gym and then I come back, I'm all pawis na pawis and breathing like that. My guama used to tell me that I'm consuming my life force early. I wasn't a doctor then and I didn't understand what she was saying. But now that I'm a doctor and I've learned more, I realized too much exercise will harden your blood vessels and it will harden and thicken your heart, making it more unhealthy. Okay? So maybe that's what she meant by me consuming my life energy. So the recovery phase is very important. So the best is to just spike your blood pressure to about 70% and let it come back down. Every day monitor your weight, every day monitor your sugar, monitor your resting heart rate. If you start noticing a trend that your resting heart rate is going up, then you need to exercise more. By dilating the blood vessels, you make sure that no plaque will develop. Okay. And by giving enough recovery time, you make sure that the blood vessels, the heart, the muscles will have full recovery. What's bad is if you abused on Monday and then you abuse again on Tuesday, on Wednesday. So what happens is for the heart to perform the task that you are making it do, it will harden, it will thicken. You want it to be able to recover. You have to give it time to build good quality collagen, which has elasticity. So it's important to exercise only to about 70%. Now, how do you know if you're at 70%? That's why you have your heart rate monitors. It can be a watch, it can be this one. You just check during your heart rate. Oh, sumusobra na ako. This is now bad for my heart. So tone down your exercise. Okay? Because your body doesn't care, your heart doesn't care. It doesn't know how many reps you've done. It doesn't know how heavy your weight. It only knows how hard it's working. So that we can measure with heart rate. Okay? So it's important to know the metrics so you know how to improve and you'll know if you are helping yourself or you are not. Okay? So that does it for exercise. Even what I was able to see what Sister Juliet was doing earlier, and she was giving you that exercise. While you were doing that, these are just the chair exercises. While you were doing that, if you measured your heart rate, you want to stay below 140. Okay? This is not specific to you, but just judging by the age range that we're having right now, it's good to keep it under 140. Okay? Of course, it's best if you know what is your specific exercise heart rate range. But until then, make sure lang it doesn't go over 140, 145. Keep it in the 120s, 130s heart rate. That should be safe until we can figure out what is your unique normal heart rate. Okay? So that does it for exercise. 3 times a week is fine. Only 70% of your maximum heart rate. Okay, next, very, very important part is sleep. Okay, does anybody here have problem sleeping? You can raise your hand because I can see you if your camera is on. No one? No one has problem sleeping?
Nahihiya lang, Doc.
Okay, so we're seeing some hands already. Okay,
Ah,
if you have some problem sleeping, okay, yeah, I can see some hands now. All right. Now, sleeping is just as important as nutrition and exercise. Sometimes people say, "Oh, I'm exercising 3 times a week. I should be healthy." Doesn't follow. We're always ignoring the quality of our sleep. When you sleep, I have patients when I take their blood, I know if they are puyat just by looking at their blood. Because people that don't sleep well, they have very dark and very thick blood. When you sleep, your body makes more hemoglobin. Hemoglobin is attached to the iron, attaches to the oxygen. Without hemoglobin, your blood cannot do its job. Hemoglobin is only made while you sleep. Okay? That's why sleep is so important. You can go 5 days without food, but you can't go five days without sleep. Okay? So it's sleep is very, very important. Okay? Now, um, if you are taking things like Stilnox, Dormicum, if you're taking pharmaceutical help to sleep, that is not very sustainable because eventually that'll be hard on your hormones. Okay, that will mess up your hormones. As much as possible, we should reduce the amount of medication and maintenance that we take so that your body does all of it itself. Okay, we're not going to be dependent on medicine. Sometimes, because we can't sleep, we'll just take Stilnox. But what if we just remove the gadgets na lang at night? Maybe there should be a after 10, no cell phone in bed. After 10, no iPad in bed. After 10, no TV. Okay? So part of what's keeping us up, part of what is making us dependent on sleep aids. So some people, they want to take a shot of whiskey or wine. They need wine so that they can sleep well. But right now, the biggest problem, what's killing us most, is our devices because it keeps us engaged on our phone. So it takes us longer to fall asleep. Like we discussed in our last talk, between the hours of 10 p.m. and 2 a.m., that's when your liver regenerates. There's a circadian rhythm. The organs take turns to repair. They don't do it all at the same time. Imagine if all of the systems shut down to repair and regenerate, we'd be dead. They take turns. 10 to 2 is liver. And then after that is kidney. That's why we want to be asleep starting at least by 11. You have to be asleep. So to be able to sleep earlier is a blessing because that's also linked to the magnetic signature of the earth at the time of where you are. Okay? Because we are regulated by the moon. If you don't believe me that we're regulated by the moon, how come all women, their menstrual cycle is in sync with the moon? Your uterus knows where the moon is at the time, right? So we are, as human beings, we are subject to the magnetic signature at the time. So between the hours of 10 and 2, there's a different magnetic signature that we may not be conscious of, but our body can sense. Okay? So that's why it likes to heal between those hours. Look, let's give it a chance to heal at those hours. Which means at 10 o'clock, dapat wala nang gadget. Okay? No more TV, no more cell phone, no more iPad at 10. Okay? That's one. So that's one way to improve sleep. Number two way of improving sleep is please make sure that you have consumed your energy. Sometimes it's hard to sleep because you haven't moved enough, right? You haven't spent enough energy. So by the time 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock arrives, you still have a lot of energy and it's hard to sleep. Okay? So try to make it a point to do something active every time. It doesn't, I'm not saying go out and do a marathon. You could just do exercises on a chair, around your room, in the garden, get sunlight. Okay? So just that. Remove the the mental stimulation from the gadgets, TV, tablet, and then make sure you consume your energy. That's number two. Number three, don't eat late. You have to eat early. Okay? If you want to be asleep by 10, then that means your last meal was at 6. Remember before nauso yung 6 o'clock diet, which means you eat only until 6 p.m.? Turns out that's very, very wise because if you want to be asleep by 10, that means your body would have, you want to sleep 4 hours after your last meal. Okay? 4 hours after your last meal is very important because it's hard to sleep when you are still actively digesting. Okay? That's consuming calories to burn that food. That's different from the sleepy sensation that we get after being busog. You know what they call yung food coma, right? It's the sleepy sensation that you get after eating too much. That means that your sugar has spiked and your body is trying to bring everything down because the sugar is too high already. So that food coma is bad. That means your sugar, your blood sugar is starting to hit the 190s, 200s, okay? That your body is trying to shut down, okay? It's the what I'm trying to say is that the sleepy sensation after eating too much is entirely different, okay? Because generally, if you make your feeding time too close to your sleeping time, your body cannot truly rest because it's still busy digesting. You want at least 4 hours to have lapsed so that you can sleep quality by 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock. If you're still munching, if you're still eating, like my mom, my gosh, before she was so guilty of this, she would be eating her tapa and her champoy at about 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock. That's so bad. Okay. Last meal should be done by 6. So you can have quality sleep by 10 or 11. Okay. Some people say the older you get, the less sleep you need. That's technically not true because you still need the same amount of sleep. The problem is the older we get, the less we spend our energy and the more bad habits we get so that we end up sleeping less. It's not good for you. Okay, you want to be asleep by 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock at the latest. Otherwise, some organs will rush or skip their recovery time. Okay, so if you want to live longer, give your body the recovery it needs through quality sleep. So that's it. No, no mental stimulation. Consume your energy and don't eat past 4 hours before you sleep. Okay. And then next. So that covers sleep. The last is mental health. Okay. So mental health is also very, very, very important because it dictates the hormones. If you're happy, you have lots of endorphins. If you're stressed, if you're in fear, if you're constantly worried about your kids, your grandkids, all of that worry will secrete cortisol. When there's a lot of cortisol in your blood, it will make your body have a lot of sugar. So now we know that when they say stress kills, we know how it kills it. stress kills because when you are in a sympathetic fight or flight mode, your cortisol increases. When your cortisol increases, it expects you to fight or flight, right? To run or stay and fight. That is the state of stress. When you're in a state of stress, lots of cortisol, lots of sugar. Even if you haven't eaten all day, you can monitor your sugar. I wore a continuous glucose monitor. It's a patch that you can wear on your it's embedded in your skin. So I wore that for 2 weeks. So I can check my sugar every time. When I was stressed, even if I haven't eaten anything in over 18 hours, my sugar would go up. And then I'm thinking, saan galing yung sugar na yun? I haven't eaten anything since dinner of last night. Where did the sugar come from? The body can make its own sugar in the liver. That's why a lot of people have fatty liver. That means you're making too much sugar. When there's a lot of stress, that means a lot of cortisol. When there's a lot of cortisol, the body will make sugar. It's trying to put a lot of fuel in the bloodstream so that you can fight or flight. That's stress. That's fear. Okay? So you want to make sure that you are of sound mind as well. Mental health is super important. We used to, now we understand fully how stress kills. Stress kills by increasing your sugar. When there's a lot of sugar in the body, there is no repair because it expects you to be in fight or flight mode. Sugar diabetes is such a killer. I know this because my mom died from this. And that's also a big cause of her liver cancer. Okay, that's why I became so passionate about figuring out. That's why I wore that glucose monitor. It was embedded in my skin. It was so uncomfortable, and my son kept on picking at it. But I needed to understand what food, what activities will spike my sugar. Okay, remember this: blood sugar is not only dependent on what you eat; it's also part of your state of mind. If you're in stress, your body will make sugar. You can be skinny and still be diabetic. Diabetes is not just for fat people. Okay, you can be skinny and be diabetic, and that means a much shorter life, much higher risk of terminal illness. Okay, so please monitor your sugar and monitor your mind, because if your mind is stressed, then your sugar will go up and your body will not repair. Everything starts to break down. Okay, so what do you do for mental health? Make sure there's a lot of community. That's why I've never stopped supporting MGC, and I've never stopped supporting Evergreen, because I love what community you've built here. Community is part of what keeps you mentally healthy. Maintain this, interact, communicate with your community, and that naturally brings your stress levels down. It's so important to have community. Interact with your children, interact with your grandkids. Keep yourself mentally young by, it can be as simple as asking your kids or your grandkids, what are the popular words now to say? Like LOL. That's super luma na. It's not laugh. It's laugh out loud. Those things. Keep yourself mentally young. Engage conversation with younger people so you don't get so convinced that you're so old. Problem is, if it's just old topics, you're all complaining about what hurts, who's a good doctor, what is the nice new medication, how many milligrams of metformin are you on, which is very good, by the way, metformin. If your sugar is high, until you can bring it down naturally, you can take metformin. But it's not always just a comparison on what your maintenance medication is and who has more pain. Okay, that's why you have to engage with younger people so that it will keep you mentally young also. Those things are super important for mental health. Another thing in mental health is a lot of us have gone a little bit crazy because we can't go out. Okay, and sometimes, for like my dad is so angry with me because I don't let him go to the palenque anymore. I don't let him go to the grocery anymore, and that was part of his activity. Um, because it's scary. Yeah, there were times where there were spikes where I don't let him out. Now I kind of let him out already. But before I wouldn't let him out. So the exercise that I would give him, if you can, because travel, going out is part of what keeps you mentally healthy. But right now that we can't go out, how do we stay mentally healthy? By Zoom. This is one. Okay. Number two, it's hard to interact with Zoom. Sometimes what you can do is travel in your mind, so that, the time when I forced myself to eliminate gadgets at night. Put away your phone, put away your tablet, put away your TV, turn it off. So what happened is I was left in bed. I had nothing. I had no phone. What am I gonna do? So what you can do is you can do mental exercises that will help you stay mentally healthy. And you can also travel that way. Okay. So sometimes it can be as simple as there's an exercise that the psychologist taught me. So I'm going to give you an example. This is my pen. My pen has my name engraved on it. You can just get objects in and around you or think of things and then think about 5 memories you have with that object. It doesn't always have to be good, doesn't have to be bad, but you can look around you and look at these objects. That's why it's nice to have pictures around of happy memories. Sometimes you just look at the photo and then you go into it, close your eyes, and you imagine 5 things that you associate with these objects, 5 things you associate with certain memories. It can be as simple as the shirt that you're wearing. I remember this shirt that I'm wearing was a gift from my wife. She, I remember we bought it in the Fred Perry store in BGC, you know? So it's just that. And then so it's you have something in context and it helps you mentally travel, right? What else is mental traveling? It's also when you're talking to someone, we're talking to a friend, and then tells you about that memory. Remember when we went to Tagaytay and this and that? That engages, that stimulates healthy hormones to fill your body, and it helps you go on repair mode. Okay? So be very protective of your mental health. And there's a lot of things that you can do even at home. Sometimes it's watching a comedy. Try not to watch the news so much because there's never anything good happening in the news. Watch a comedy. Even if you're in bed and you know that you're trying to train yourself to sleep early, you can do what I did. Just mental traveling exercises to make you have more endorphins, less cortisol, less of the stress hormones, and you'll find it'll be easier to fall asleep. So with me, I couldn't sleep. I would think about the pajama I was wearing, and then where we bought the pajama. So it's also good exercise for memory retrieval, right? There's a difference between memory loss and retrieval issues. Okay. So if you want to prevent Alzheimer's, do memory exercises. That's what you can do instead of having more gadgets, more iPad. Okay, after a certain hour, just do mental positivity exercises. Uh, Mental traveling is daydreaming. Yes, it can be daydreaming. And, mental traveling doesn't mean you have to do it alone. Sometimes you can just talk to your spouse and say, Uy, remember this time? Remember when you went there, and then remember nung naubusan tayo ng gas? Remember nung nasira yung sasakyan? You know, or remember when we were walking and then it started to rain? Those things, it would elicit positive memories. And when you have good, positive, happy memories, your body will start to secrete good, positive resting hormones, right? So you'll be able to heal better. You can't heal when there's a lot of cortisol. These are stress hormones, fear hormones. So keep on stimulating positive memories. And this can be a group activity. You can talk about it with your spouse in bed. You can talk about it with your nurse. You can talk about it with your kids. You know, just talking about these positive things will keep you in a positive mental state. Even if you can't go out, your mind can relive all of those amazing decades and decades worth of memories. Okay? Because you have to work on that too. Just as you purposefully exercise, when you put on your rubber shoes and you go walking in the village, that was a conscious decision. Taking care of your mental health, also a conscious decision, right? You have to work on that. So with that, that completes the four. Remember, it's as we talked about, nutrition, exercise, sleep, and mental health. Mental health, super important, is community. If you're shy, you don't want to interact, you don't want to give your opinions over Zoom, that's okay. You're still somehow interacting. You're still taking part in the memories that's being shared by the people speaking, right? Do those things and always remember to talk about positive memories to make your body have more times in repair mode because the body follows the mind and the mind follows the body. You have to take care of both. So just remember nutrition, exercise, sleep, and mental health. That's it. With that, thank you very much. Thank you again for allowing me the opportunity to share.